Would you please welcome to the stage Mr. Steen Sunesen.
Many thanks. The sound is on. Thank you, Birger, for the kind introduction, and thanks to David and BIM Iceland for inviting me. Very exciting to be here and see this many people. I don't think that we in Norway have ever collected or gathered so many people at a conference, so it shows a lot of support for BIM and Open BIM in Iceland. I think that is really great. I've called this information quality, are we digital yet? Because I think it's a lot of good things has been done, and we are doing a lot of great things, and you have seen many very cutting-edge examples already today. But I think also it's important that we kind of keep a status as where do we have to go, where do we have to be, and also is the entire industry where it should be, or is it just the front runners? And I'm actually going to end with explaining a European project, mainly targeted at European clients and, of course, European Building Smart chapters. But I need to tell you a bit about the background for this project. So, yes, I'm CEO, Building Smart Norway, happy to be here. And I'm architect as profession, but I work with BIM both as an architect, but later full-time with Open BIM for the last 20 years plus. I'm also convener for some standardization committees, both in Norway and in Europe, in SEN. And in this regard, it's also relevant to say that I've recently been project manager for Statsbygg, the government's client and owner organization's BIM requirement, because some of my points here today is based on those experiences I have from there. So when we look at the construction industry, I think we have two major challenges here. One of them is productivity. We know that we are going to have fewer hands, fewer people that has to do more because of gentrification. There hasn't born that many children, and the older people are getting older. So we have to do more with less hands on the job. And of course, everybody also know about the sustainability, climate changes and such. So we need to reduce the footprint without substantially reduce the quality of the way we live. And how are we going to do this? We have to make better decisions for the future. And to do that, we need better information. We have to be better decision makers, and this is basically what BIM is about. We also need to be able to reuse information, so we have to have a life cycle approach to what we're doing. And finally, because we need to increase productivity, we need to automate as much as possible. And in order to do that, we have to go into the direction where everything is machine interpretable rather than human interpretable. So we need standardized information, again, machine interpretable, and we need to have a life cycle approach to every time we do something, we have to think of those after us who will want to use the same information. And then also about business models. I think that this is something I haven't really seen a lot of yet, is that we have to allow to that digitalization get a space and really demonstrate what it can do. And of course, technology is not going to do it by itself. We have to do it. And just so you mean what I mean by examples. For example, the clients, as of today, we are specifying. We're making specifications for buildings or for workplaces, rather than saying what is the business value that we have, and make it up to consultant and contractors to deliver on that. Another, that consultants today still sell hours. That is their business model. And they are not always happy to have a very smart guy in the corner who come up with a solution where they can do the work in half, because they may not sell as many hours. Instead of saying that, yeah, but we become more compatible and get more assignments, so we are sure to survive this transition that we're in. And for owners, are we really renting out workplaces, or are we facilitating collaboration, especially for offices? I know production, that's another thing, but I think that is some of the discussions that we really haven't had yet. And also contractors, what are we actually delivering? Is it just buildings, or is it more like facilitating business needs as could be specified up here? So maybe the business part, the building part is not that important anymore. It's the business value. So what is BIM? Well, why have I even included this? Many of you are, of course, aware of what it is, but it is a process. It is a process that utilizes a digital representation. And why is that a point? Yeah, well, because the models and the technology and the information doesn't do any value by itself. It's a tool. We have to use it right to create value. Also, I included, this is from ISO 9650, so this is not something I've invented, that information models, or PIM or AEM as they call, contain geometrical information, alphanumeric information, and documentation. And this one specifically is what I'm going to talk about. Geometry is something that we all know about models, typically called BIM models or whatever. They're great on geometry. So geometry works, kind of. So, but alphanumeric information is something that's quite underestimated, the value and the dependency of many processes has on that part. That's why I'm going to talk about it. This is one example that you can make, as many of you probably know, you can make a cost analysis quite easily based on a model. What takes time also when working with models is to manually connecting every object or type of objects to a price definition or definition of a cost, and then to update it. The better information you have for identifying what kind of objects you have, the more you automate. And you can actually be so efficient that this is not something you just do after a project stage, but you do it repeatedly every 2 weeks. So it becomes a very important key performance indicator that you can actually adjust according to. This is something that many contractors use today, but clients do not. And we really are struggling with the information quality from the consultants. So, because this is really very much depending that we have good quality. Another example, it's actually pretty much the same process, life cycle assessment, where you have to, for example, you can assess the footprint. And in this case, this is a great example. In this case, it worked really well because it was a well-structured Statsbygg project, that you only have 15% unlinked objects from the beginning. So 85% of the job was done automatically because of good general structure. Not specified for this project or this purpose, just good structure in the model. So again, it's very much depending on standardized information. And then you also have these dashboards becoming increasingly popular. This is a good way for the project management also to directly see the value of using BIM. So maybe they also are willing to invest a bit more of the project resources to get it right. And here you can, for example, see you can have a very good status. Of course, given that you know what it means, you have a plan according to where you should be, and then you can actually give a live data on where you are now. And you set in actions for getting on the right path if you see you're deviating at an early stage before it actually becomes a problem. And this is another one example from my previous employer in Statsbygg, that you had a very easy task to do as a facility manager, a building operator. But but it took half a day to find the documentation in order to do the job. So what we really want to do is to link information with the building, and a very good way of doing that is the model, the geometrical model, because it's a very intuitive way of searching information and looking it up. We even made a Norwegian standard in the committee that I'm leading, saying something about how you distribute information and tips and tricks for how to succeed. So, and in this case also, it requires that the information is structured uniformly across all projects, so you can manage your entire portfolio independently on which project that has to delivered. And to continue with the example, and this is the last one, don't worry. This is a contractor. We have one of our members in Building Smart Norway will work very model-centric. Actually, they have a dashboard where you can see all their projects in one screen and how they're performing on issue management, and some cases also for checking lists. But they really want to be able to manage each project all the way down to information quality, and this is something they really struggle with because the consultants do not deliver according to any specification. So I think these are actually quite general issues that we have here. So I don't want to say that we're not doing good, because we have really come far in the last 20 years, but we are certainly not there yet either. So here they say the lack of standardized and structured project. So, and one of the things that we really have now is standards. So it's really not for the lack of standards. There are many standards, and some will say too many, and we're still producing them. So there is a reason why we're doing it, because there actually are parts of the industry that is not standardized yet. Standards are super important, but we also have to take in that it can be very difficult for everybody in the industry who just want to be a good architect or engineer to be BIM experts and standard expert and many other things. So from my background as a client, we asked ourselves, what can we as clients do to improve this? We cannot do everything. Consultants have to do their part, contractors have to do their part, product vendors have to do their part, software vendors have to do their part. But what can we do as clients? And we saw that we have to make it easier to get all the SMEs. The vast majority of the companies in the industry are small and medium-sized, pretty much small enterprises. So of course, we need to make sure that we specify requirements, and we actually only specify those requirements that are actually needed, so we don't get too creative. We have to use the same existing standards, and I'm talking about across all clients, not just my previous employer, but all clients. And we should simplify it. And maybe even we should try to make it look more like each other. So the way we require information and how we agree on deliverables and how we follow up on deliverables is actually done pretty much the same way. We don't want the same information, but everything, the system around it, why not do it the same way? So if I'm an architect moving from one project to another, from one client to another, I see they have the same system, I have to relate to the same system. And I can very easily look up what is the same as before and what is different. And that is actually how it started, at least for my part. We're trying to harmonize between clients. It didn't take that long before we actually also asked within the Nordics. And the Nordics, why? Because architects, engineers, contractors, software vendors in Scandinavia or Nordics actually are operating on a Nordic level. So if we want to do something for helping them to deliver on our requirements, why not doing that? And now we got this project under European in projects in Europe, which is a grouping of all European chapters. I think it's 22 chapters now. That is within the European Open BIM Forum, and we established this project now with quite an interest from the majority of the countries. It has this terrible name, Requirement Frameworks Harmonization, I've learned it now after been leading it for almost a year, but it's terrible, I know. But it's about harmonizing, for clients harmonizing what we're doing. But we're not negotiating this directly with the clients, because we know there will be differences in all European countries. So the point here is that we try to harmonize the overall framework with all the chapters, and then you can make specifications for each national within each national chapter. So this is how we are trying to do it. What are the things that we can harmonize? One of the things is be based on the same normative standards, international normative standards. We had a survey. We actually spent quite a lot of time to go through all the national frameworks for requirements that exist, and found that everybody is actually based on the same international standards. So that was actually that was a plus, because it means that we don't have any obstacles that some chapters are actually using national standards that we have to negotiate with and so on. So the path is actually relatively open for doing it. And then we're going to look at practices. How do we require open BIM, and how does the procurement process look like? I know that this is something that project managers struggle with today, even if the company have a very good specification. But how do I actually connect the requirements with the agreement or the contract we have with, let's say, a group of designers or a turnkey contractor? How do I actually do that, and not creating more risk? I actually want to reduce risk in my project, risk for conflict, risk for overrun of budgets and time, of course. So how do we do that? And we have experience in that, and this is something we can do. Model practices, of course, and so also we're looking into minimal requirements. I think we've come to a stage where we can say that a normal project, let's say a school or health building, is not really technical, very requiring, office building and so on. That is the bread and butter of many construction projects today, that we can actually specify a minimum. Say, if you do this, you will get good control of cost and quality assurance and so on. And you can do it off the shelf. So you don't have to be an expert, just follow this step by step, and we will actually make sure for you that you don't fail. So, of course, this is based on the normative standards. This is Building Smart, so Building Smart Open BIM workflow, as explained earlier today by Richard Kelly, stands. And then we have the ISO 19650, which is great for both terminology and also the tendering procurement process. The level of information need. How do you actually specify information requirements? And we also looked at the bit older IDM, the process manual for how to specify also requirements and look at the process. So this is kind of the basis of what we're doing. One of the things that the information in a project has to work together. CDE, is that a familiar common data environment? Is that a familiar term here in Iceland? Many probably think that this is just for shoveling IFC models across each other, but I mean, it's actually all information, it's all documents, and all the processes, cost estimation and quality assurance and so on has to be set up correctly, so it really supports all the requirements of the projects. Another thing is that you have different stages of information, so you can either have work in progress, shared, published, or archived, so it's different kind of maturity and what you can use the information for, but we don't have established common rules for what does it take to go from one stage to another. And maybe we cannot say that on a European level, these are the requirements, but we can give a lot of guidance to it and maybe some suggestions. When it comes to practices, other practices, this is the level of information need. This is the part where you actually specify the requirements, and as you see, there's geometrical alphanumeric documentation. But these up here say that every time you have a requirement, it has to have a purpose. It has to be somebody who delivers it. It has to have at least one milestone where you have to live it at that time. This is not standardized. So why can't we just make it generic that everybody in Europe can have? If you have a national stage model, for example, then you can just map it to it. So it will become much more like, at least on national level, this is something we should look at. The other thing is how you actually document your requirements as a document. This is actually according to a guideline that I was joined producing, CEN-TR 70654, that actually say something about this. And this can be this easy is how the requirement can look like. Of course, this is not only half filled out. And this can be the reply. And if you have it in a spreadsheet, you can actually have each requirement and the reply on one line. So you can see at the BIM execution plan, it tells you how are we going to deliver on this requirement. So this could be a very easy approach to that. We also made a list of minimal requirements. We think that being able to report, for example, these dashboards is important, and also to report to the line organization that all the designing disciplines are actually doing the modeling and focus their energy on modeling, that you can do collaboration. So the model development has to follow a decision plan. And also that you can have coordination and control. Of course, this is a quality assurance, but it's a bit different. Coordination is something you do on the run when you exchange model between the discipline, and control is for a milestone. Cost estimation, I've been into that before. This is so important in each project, so we need to get this up front and center. Information for production, and also information for handover, which is not done very well today. Maybe also because many facility management don't know really what they want. But for each time you have a project that does not deliver very good information, it's an opportunity wasted, not just now, but also in 5 or 10 and 20 years when they are ready. This is why this should actually be implemented and included in the contract from the beginning of the project. This is a minimum that has to be required. So another thing is that this is not about building just. We have equally many clients in Building Smart that is into infrastructure. So what we want to do is to have as much common overall practices with of course, terminology, the processes, templates for all these more generic overall practices that should be as common as possible, and have to find a common language that both sectors in the industry are comfortable with. But of course, if we're going into these minimal requirements and specify actual deliverables, of course that will look different, because it's different disciplines, different information that you want. So it will probably split at a certain point between infrastructure and building as well. This was established as a project. Formally, it came up in January, but in March, it was established, and we gave ourselves 1 year to develop the first version. We have done this mapping to see what exists today. Then we have the minimal requirements, and also have templates and guidelines to support those. At least for now, we do have it for building. We're lagging a bit behind on infrastructure, but we'll get there. Maybe not until the Building Smart Summits. These are the deliverable dates, the Building Smart Summits. Then it doesn't stop there. This is actually where the work starts. Then we're actually starting with the implementation and the takeover of this in the chapters, and how they can utilize it to make a more specific national specification. So that will help their clients, even the clients that do not have anything, they can use it maybe off the shelf, or large organizations that do have something, over time can converge into something more similar, so it becomes more easier for their consultant and contractors to deliver upon. Of course, we need some pilot projects to get feedback, what works and what doesn't. And finally, I can't guarantee that this will already be in 26, because this is a project that will take time, I can assure you. But at some point, we can also look at integration to make software support for exports directly based on these requirements, training, education, certification, and so on. So I think my time is up, and thank you for the opportunity to present this project.